Hello, everyone. Welcome to my presentation on excitation transfer theory. In this lesson, we will go over the major excitation transfer theory scholars and their impacts on the theory itself, and how the theory has been explored in mass communication scholarship, and the state of excitation transfer theory research in current scholarship. Dolf Zillmann is a German-American scholar who introduced excitation transfer theory in 1971 during his time at the University of Pennsylvania's Annenberg School for Communications. Zillmann obtained his PhD in communication and social psychology from Annenberg in 1969 and stayed on at the university to work as a professor and further elaborate on excitation transfer theory until 1975, when he left for Indiana University and created their Institute for Communications Research. He stayed there until 1988, when he moved to the University of Alabama. Today, he is still alive and affiliated with the university in his retirement. During the height of his career, Zillmann was the foremost scholar fine-tuning excitation transfer theory. His education in psychology, social science, experimental procedure had a major impact on his examination and the underlying theory of excitation transfer theory. However, he was not alone. Some other major scholars were Joanne Cantor, Jennings Bryant, and R. Glenn Cummings. Joanne Cantor worked closely with Zillmann in the 1970s and published her own early studies exploring the influences of differences on excitation transfer theory. While she did not stay within excitation transfer theory specific scholarship, she utilized the theories and assumptions within it in her later works on the influence of media on children, along with her current post-academic work on parenting and stress reduction. Another major theorist is Jennings Bryant, who co-wrote with Zillmann Selective Exposure to Communications in 1985, which fundamentally changed excitation transfer theory by introducing the concept of mood management theory. This is the theory that media is chosen based off hedonistic motivations rather than stable personality characteristics of the people. This is important to consider when considering media exposure and excitation transfer theory. Another major scholar is R. Glenn Cummings, who is currently one of the most prolific contemporary scholars within excitation-specific studies, and he has been the author to several encyclopedia entries on the topic. His most popular work looks at the influence of cameras on sports. But what is excitation transfer theory? It is a communications and social psychology, physio-psychological theory that explores the influences of stimuli on a person's emotions. The theory is based off physiological processes in the sympathetic peripheral autonomic nervous system. As a reminder, the peripheral nervous system is the nervous system beyond your brain and spinal cord, and the autonomic nervous system are its unconscious functions. The sympathetic nervous system is our hero for excitation transfer theory and is excited or mobilized in times of stress or crisis. The excitation transfer theory looks at the transfer of residual arousal or excitation following stimuli. Excitation transfer theory argues that sympathetic arousal or excitation is the main determining factor influencing emotions and behavior following stimulation. This is based on the foundational idea that excitation of the sympathetic nervous system dissipates relatively slowly. That is because arousal is needed to push people to survive stressful events, and that excitation remains after you psychologically adjust back to normal. The theory suggests that emotions evolved as reactions to resolving stress. A great visualization of this can be seen in the chart of excitation activity for Cummings 2017 in the International Encyclopedia of Media Effects. It shows the residual levels of activation with repeated stimuli over time, showing that residual arousal continues after additional stimuli. The influence of stimulation on emotion in excitation transfer theory is based on the three-factor theory of emotion. This theory argues that there are three components of emotion. These are dispositional, excitatory, and experimental. Dispositional responses are immediate, unconscious, automatic reactions to stimuli. The excitatory component is the second overall arousal from stimuli. And this is followed by experimental element, which is the conscious recognition or analysis of your state responding to the stimuli. This is feeling it consciously. Zillman argues that all three components create our experience of emotions. Excitation transfer theory is based off the idea of a misattribution of continued arousal from previous stimuli to more recent stimuli. This is the idea that reaction to initial excitation is transferred to more recent stimuli. Thus, the initial excitation have a larger influence on emotions than actually meets the eye. The most popular discussions of Zillman's excitation transfer theory in the media have been regarding the impact of violence in video games and on TV on kids. This is especially asking, does violent media make violent kids? One of the founding studies in excitation theory structure was conducted by Cantor, Zillman, and Bryant, and defined the three stages of recovery post-arousal, in their case, during exercise, that could be utilized for further excitation transfer research. The three stages they found were aroused and known arousal, stage 2, where they are aroused but it is unconscious, or stage 3, where they are unaroused and they are aware of their unarousal. The experiment had participants ride a stationary bike to watch a sexual video in varying phases of excitation recovery. They found those in stage 2, specifically those that were still aroused from the initial stimulation, but it was unconscious, had higher reported sexual arousal to the video than those at other levels. This suggests that excitation transfer is working in the unconscious mind. A common example of excitation transfer theory is the partner attraction after roller coaster rides. Mestron and Frolic 2003 found that non-couples riding roller coasters together will report higher sexual attraction for those strangers than non-riders. However, the study did not find the theory to be effective on couples and suggest that a more psychological response is overtaking the physiological one, which guides the strangers. In these cases, the excitation stimuli of the roller coaster or bicycle leads to physiological arousal that continues after the stimuli, and this is misattributed to later stimuli, specifically the attractive person or the sexual video, rather than the recognition of continued impacts from earlier stimuli. The most popular research areas in excitation transfer theory are in violence and aggression. Zillman's 1971 paper, where he introduced the term, actually looks at the influence of communication on aggressive behavior. Following works by Zillman and his colleagues looked at the strength, duration, and general effects of violent and aggressive media on aggressive or violent behavior. This research continues to be a popular area of study, including a 2020 study on gaming addiction and aggression in Pakistani young adults, gaining lots of attention. Beyond aggressive research, excitation transfer theory scholarship also has interest in other areas, such as gaming, sports, sexuality, and strategic communications. There's a lot of overlap between these categories, such as gaming often looking at the influence of violent content and the game design itself on emotions. But there's also a great variety in excitation transfer theory. with sports research looking at the design of broadcast on spectators and production, or sexuality studies looking at the inclusion of explicit content or other influences on arousal. While strategic communications looks at how marketing, advertising, and brand placement can be used to build greater brand loyalty or purchasing, there's a great variety in the areas of research. But this leads to the final question. Does excitation transfer theory exist? Excitation transfer theory has been supported by scholarship in a myriad of contexts. However, there have been a number of studies that have suggested that there may be more mediating factors than we are aware of. There's also been critique from outside the discipline for its usage of excitation transfer theory by political groups who are pushing against censorship, specifically those who are aiming to increase censorship for violent video games. Today, research on excitation transfer theory has slowed down, especially since 2020, but it continues to be a major founding theory in communications social science scholarship and continues to be widely taught in communications programs. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch.